Alright, in this video we'll be going over how to sum all the elements of a 2D array, so just doing some math stuff with it. So let's just try to create a method to do this. To do that, so let's just first we'll create some fields. So we'll just say that we have a constant int. We'll say that we have a constant int. We'll just call it rows and we'll set it to 3. Actually, let's just let's just go with 3 then. So we have private constant int calls points to 3 as well. And here we'll have an int array. We'll pass in comma. We'll call it numbers and point it to a 2D array initialization list. So we'll just set some values here. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll have a comma. We'll bring that second curly bracket down, so Writer's just going to format it. So then we'll have the comma should be outside of the first row. So the second row here, then we'll have. So we'll have 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll have a comma, and then for this row we'll have 9, 10, 11, 12. We'll have a semicolon to close the initialization list. So here we have private int array of array index, comma, numbers points to an initialization list of a 2D array. So here we'll have we could just do everything here in a method, but we could also pass them as a parameter. So here we'll maybe just say that we can make it a field. So we'll say we have private int total points to 0. Okay, so here let's just call this method. We'll just say, what are we doing here? So let's just say sum array values, or sum 2D array. We'll say that it takes a parameter int. It takes the int array, so with a comma inside the square brackets. We'll just call this to say that it takes an array. Let's just see, there seems to be an error somewhere, so let me just check where that is. Method must have, oh my bad. Okay, sorry, so this should be, I'm doing Python here. So we have, let's just say that we have, for example, we don't need this to be private. Okay, let's just go with void. Actually, we could go with, we have an int array, so let's just go with int sum 2D array. We'll say that it takes a parameter int array of array index, comma, and we'll call it array. So we'll just remove this one here. Okay, return statement. So this is okay. So here let's just say So here we'll have a loop here, so we'll say for, actually we could just make this a void. Well, if we want to return an int, we can add it later on. Okay, so that should be the right syntax to pass a 2D array. So usually in other languages, for example, they just go like that. But in C# you have to do it like that instead, so it's just one array bracket with a comma inside. So here we'll have we'll have a nested loop here. So we'll say for int. So for int I points to for int I points to 0. I is less than rows. Row plus I plus plus. So then we'll say do we pass it in? Okay. Actually, this isn't. I don't think this is gonna work properly. Actually, no. This should be okay. So then here we'll have for int j points to 0. J is less than calls. J plus plus. Then here we'll say total plus equals. Or we could say total points to total plus. Array of indexed row comma call. Sorry, I comma j. So remember, for the 2D array syntax in C# you have to, instead of passing this array parameter like this, like Java and C. Oops. Pretty much, I think even Python's like that too, or something similar. But pretty much you just have to, instead of doing the two dimensions beside each other, they just go with a single array, comma j. The total points a total plus array of index I comma j. Then here, outside the nested loop, we'll say message box dot show. The message box dot show, then the string is the total is. Then we'll concatenate the value total. So what's happening here? We're saying we're nesting. First, for I points to 0, I is less than rows is 3. We could just change these to 2 just to make it easier. Okay, let's forget that actually, because 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I think something's wrong with this here. Because we have too many elements. So let me take these out. Let's just go with this 2 by 2. Okay, so we have a 2 by 2 2D array here. So in this case the value is going to be 2. So for int I points to 0, I is less than 2 I plus plus, and then for int j points to 0, j is less than 2 j plus plus. So for iteration 0 here then, and for iteration 0 in the inner loop, which is going to iterate from 0 to n minus 1, where the size is 2, so it's just going to iterate twice. First iteration, 0th iteration, the second iteration is the 1 iteration, so that'll be first and second iteration. And then here we'll have total points to total, which in this case total was initialized to the value 0. So in the first iteration, total points to the value 0. So 0. So total points to 0 plus array index I comma j. So 0 comma 0, which has a value 1. Then it'll iterate. J is gonna iterate. So it's J++ once we check the loop condition. So J was 0, so you go 0 plus 1. So you add 1 to 0, so now 1. J points to 1, J is less than 2, J++. So then we're going to check this again, so total, or actually, so we're going to check the sum again, so total points to, I think it was 1, plus array of array index I, comma j, which is 2, so that's going to be 3. Then this, for j's iteration, is going to end, because this loop condition will be false, so we'll go back up here. And then this, so I will iterate from 0 to 1, it'll add 1 to 0. So for I points to 1, I is less than 2i++. Then this is going to add the rest of the elements, so it's just going to continue that way. So on the second, because basically for each of these loops, it's just going to iterate, for I points to 0, I is less than 2, because we set the iteration values to 2. So if it's less than 2, it's only going to have 2 iterations. If it was less than or equal to 2, it would have 3 iterations. In this case, there's only 2 iterations, so 2 iterations where I is 0 and I is 1. Where I points to 0 and I points to 1. So this outer loop just iterated so it just added itself. It added 1 to itself. So 0 points to 0 plus 1. So now I points to 1, I is less than 2, I++ is the last iteration. So if in that case, then we're going to say for in j points to 0, j, so this is going to be the same thing here. This is going to be the same, we're just having another iteration variable, so for j points to 0, j is less than 2, j++. So again, it's 2 iterations for j points to 0, and so the first iteration, so 2 iterations. First is, for up here, just back up here for a sec, first is so iteration 1 is I points to 0, and iteration 2 is I points to 1, so for the bottom here, 2 iterations where j points to 0 and j points to 1. So in this case, we had to restart this loop because it's another iteration of the outer for loop, which means it's going to start a completely new iteration for the inner for loop. So j is going to point to 0. In this case, j points to 0, j is less than 2, j++. So back up here, we're looking at total points to total, so 1 plus 2 earlier, which is 3, so 3 points to 3 plus array of array index I, comma j, so we're passing in 1 for I and 0 for j, so that's going to go down to the next column. So that'll be 5, so that value equals to 1 plus 2 plus 5, so that'll be 8. And then now it's going to check the loop condition again. For j points to, so it's going to add 1 to itself. So now you add 1 to 0, so it's going to be j points to 1, j is less than 2, j++. So then here we're going to say total points to total, which is 8, I think, 1 plus 2 plus 5, plus array of array index I, comma j, which is 6. So the value is 1 plus 2 plus 5 plus 6, so that should be 14. That's the end. That's the end of the loop and end of the. That's the end of the inner loop and end of the outer loop. So messagebox.show, if I run this, should show us that the value is 14. Unless there's something wrong with the IDE again. actually, sorry, I don't think I called a sum array. So let's just check. We just have to call we could just maybe just pass this into, okay, we'll just try passing that here. So we'll say sum 2D. Might actually not load, so we might have to change this. So we'll just pass in. So we'll call sum 2D array, and we'll pass in numbers. Let's try that. It's not really a main, this is a constructor, so it might actually not work. Okay, so it did work. So the total is 14, so that's what it told me. So in the next video, we'll be going over summing the row. So this was summing all the elements of a 2D array. In the next video, we'll do summing the rows of a 2D array, and then we'll do summing the columns in a 2D array as well. So thanks for watching, guys. If you guys like the video, you can like and subscribe to support the channel for more programming and investing tutorials. In the next video, we'll be continuing with 2D arrays. Hopefully I'll see you guys there. Take care. Thanks.